So, what if I told you that one of the biggest security threats out there in the cloud isn't some super sophisticated hack, but an unlocked door? Yeah, that's pretty much the story of MongoBleed. We're going to break down exactly what it is, how it keeps happening, and most importantly, how to stop it.
Our guide for this explainer comes from an excellent computer security series by LeafTech Solutions Learning.
All right, let's start with the scenario. I want you to imagine waking up, grabbing your coffee, checking your alerts, and discovering that your company's entire database, customer names, emails, financial data, all of it is just open. Not hacked, not breached, just completely exposed for anyone and everyone on the internet to see. This isn't some hypothetical scary story. It's a grim reality for thousands of businesses.
And that brings us to our first section, which we're calling an open invitation. Because that's really what this is. It's not about attackers smashing down a door. It's about them finding out the door was never even locked in the first place.
So what exactly is MongoBleed? First things first, it's not a specific virus or some software bug. It's just a name the security community came up with for a very specific type of disaster. When a MongoDB database is left publicly accessible online with absolutely no password or authentication required to get in. Put simply, the database is just wide open for anyone who stumbles upon it.
Now, to really get a handle on this, we have to make a really critical distinction. We are not talking about a hack here. We are talking about an exposure.
Think about it like this. MongoBleed isn't about some master thief picking a lock or breaking a window. It's about someone just casually walking up to your front door, turning the handle, finding it wide open, and just walking right inside.
Here's the key difference, right? A traditional breach is usually noisy. It involves exploits, malware, things that are designed to trip alarms. But a MongoBleed exposure, it's silent. It's just a simple misconfiguration, so your system thinks everything is perfectly fine while your data is quietly pouring out onto the internet.
So you have to ask, why MongoDB? Why does this keep happening with this particular database? Well, it's not because the database itself is insecure. It's because it's incredibly popular. It's so easy to set up, it's flexible, developers absolutely love it. But that same ease of use, especially in older versions where security wasn't always enabled by default, it kind of created a perfect storm where these simple mistakes were just way too easy to make.
So how does this actually go down? Let's break down the anatomy of a leak. You might be surprised at just how simple and how predictable the whole process is. It all unfolds in a few frighteningly simple steps. Step 1, a developer sets up a database in the cloud. Step 2, by default, it might be listening for connections from anywhere on the internet. Step 3, they turn off authentication to make setup easier and then just forget to turn it back on. And then the automated scanners find it, sometimes within minutes, and poof, the data's gone. And what is truly terrifying about this is the speed. We're not talking about hackers manually poking around for weaknesses. They have these powerful, automated tools that are constantly scanning the entire internet, 24/7, looking for these open databases. The moment you expose one, a clock starts ticking. And trust me, it is a very fast clock.
The consequences of this kind of exposure are, as you can probably imagine, absolutely devastating. We're talking huge legal fines, a complete loss of customer trust that can take years to rebuild, if you ever can. And if the attackers just delete your data and you don't have backups, that can literally be the end of the business.
Okay, so that's the problem. It's scary, it's fast, and it's destructive. But here's the good news. It is almost entirely preventable. So let's talk about how to actually lock these digital doors.
The key here is that prevention isn't about some complex, secret security magic. It's actually really straightforward. But, and this is a big but, it has to be a deliberate, conscious choice. You cannot just assume you're secure by default. You have to make it happen.
It really all boils down to 4 key principles. We're calling them the 4 pillars of prevention. You get these 4 things right, and you've basically solved the entire problem. So let's look at each one.
First, and honestly, this is the most important one, network isolation. Your database should never, ever have a public IP address unless there is an absolutely critical, unavoidable reason. It should live inside a private network, accessible only by your application servers. It's the difference between putting your vault inside a locked bank building versus just leaving it out on the street corner.
Second pillar, authentication and encryption. This is completely non-negotiable. Every single connection to your database has to require a strong username and password. You have to think of authentication not as some optional feature, but as a fundamental requirement, just like having walls on a house. And you'll also want to encrypt the connection so even if someone is sniffing your internal traffic, the data is totally useless to them.
Number 3 is monitoring. You absolutely need visibility. You have to know who is connecting to your database and when they're doing it. If some strange IP address from halfway across the world suddenly tries to connect, alarms should be going off immediately. In security, silence is often the most dangerous thing. You want your system to be noisy and tell you when something weird is happening.
And finally, your last line of defense, backups. So many victims of these attacks had all their data deleted, and tragically, they had no backups to restore from. That is a fatal error. Regular, tested backups are absolutely fundamentally critical. So, when we step back from all the technical talk about firewalls and passwords, what's the real lesson here? What's the core takeaway that MongoBleed teaches all of us?
Well, there's a saying that just sums this up perfectly. Security failures are rarely about complex, Mission Impossible-style hacks. They are almost always about simple, foundational basics being overlooked or just completely ignored.
Ultimately, this isn't just a lesson about one type of database. It's a lesson about discipline and fundamental responsibility. Powerful tools become really dangerous when they're left unguarded. So the real takeaway is this question, a question for everyone building something online. Is your digital door locked?